November is National Adoption Month, and every year we like to spotlight a local family that has gone through the adoption process. You know, there are thousands of children in the United States waiting for their forever homes. And this morning we introduce you to a very charming local couple that turned to adoption after having biological children. That story is in our In Search Of report. Take a look. Clint and Kimberly West's adoption story actually starts as a love story.
He lived upstairs in a house and I lived in the downstairs apartment, and we just kind of bumped into each other one day.
She couldn't resist me, really.
Kimberly was just 19 and Clint 23 when their whirlwind romance began.
I think I fell for him because he's just so happy and positive and encouraging, and I just never been around anybody like that before. So he was just kind of a breath of fresh air.
Wow. When I met Kimberly, I was like, that chick's smoking hot. And when she would listen to me, she would turn her whole body around to listen. It made me feel like, wow, I must have something really smart to say, you know? I must really be saying some really smart stuff. And I felt like that could be a great teammate right there.
And 1 year later, they said, I do.
We got married the day after I turned 20. My mom was like, you cannot get married until you're 20. So we waited till the day after.
Kids were always on the horizon for Clint and Kimberly, and they didn't wait long to start their family. On September 14th, 2004, little Ever West arrived to open, albeit nervous, arms.
I was never like, you know, the girl that babysat a lot. I just wasn't like that, you know, nurturing kind of person. And so then I remember them like holding, like they put Ever on my, you know, on my chest, and they were like, talk to your baby. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't do the whole baby talk thing. I don't know.
It just awakened a part of me that I didn't know that was there.
And just 2 years later, on January 9th, 2006, their son, Boaz David, joined the gang.
He was voted most unique name of 2006
at the hospital.
At the Gunderson Lutheran Hospital. It was in the newspaper.
It was. He's famous. He's pretty much famous.
Now, from the start, Clint and Kimberly talked about adopting someday.
There was somehow inside us, there was this hankering, or this like itch we had to scratch. I said, there's 100 and some million orphans out there, and we can't adopt them all, but we can adopt some.
We can make a dent.
And yet something was holding them back. That is, until they watched their neighbors welcome home an adopted child.
It's a scary thing, like all those thoughts go through your head, like, am I gonna feel the same, and like, our family's gonna look so different, and it's just kind of a scary thing to think about until you actually see it, and then you're like, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
In January of 2008, they started the adoption process, and just 4 months later...
And then we got a call on a Saturday morning, hey, we have a baby boy in Chicago, you know, you can come pick him up. It was like that.
Onesimus Andrew, named after a man in the Bible, was born May 30th, 2008.
It's a big name, and I think he's going to grow into it.
Holding Onesimus brought instant joy. But it also brought something else that they hadn't experienced with their other children.
I mean, the weight of like the fact that she thinks that we're going to do a better job than her. I mean, that's a weight that I still carry. You know, that she's entrusted this life to us.
From getting Onesimus on kind of changed my mothering, and I think that's why. Because for some reason, I get to be her mom. It was like a privilege to go and get him when he was crying. I get to go get you out of your bed.
Such a privilege that in 2009, they wanted to do it again.
So I go online, I find this ad for this baby that's due that same day. And the lady, the social worker, emailed me back right away, and we just hit it off, and we were back and forth all day. And I called Clint, and I'm like, I think this is going to work out. We all hopped in the car by 7 that night, all of us and his mom, and drove to Texas. And went like straight to the hospital basically, and snagged him up.
We were negotiating all the way to Dallas about the name.
But he always gets to pick the names.
On December 4th, 2009, Rock William stole their hearts.
When I first saw him, it was like, there was just something about him that it was just like, he's mine.
4 children, 2 biological, 2 adopted, all equally loved. But for Clint and Kimberly, something was still missing. And it turns out that something was waiting for them on the other side of the world. Well, if you hadn't guessed, this story is going to continue next week. And it's such an interesting thing that happens. It's a premonition that was made years and years before they even had children that comes true. And it's amazing. So you're definitely going to want to stick around. That story will air next Thursday on our 6 p.m. news and again here Friday morning next week.